Boys. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first installment of the Dropouts Podcast. My name is Matty. I'm joined by my co-host JP and Sean. Boys, welcome.
Let's go, baby.
We made it. So good to be here. This is a project that has been, at least 3 or 4 months in the working. So it's good to finally sit down, be able to catch up and get things rolling. Shawnee, how you feeling?
Mate, pretty pumped. Obviously, the first episode, we had a bit of a practice run last week, getting all the gear out. It is the first of the month. It is the first month of winter.
Absolutely.
And it's cold.
This morning was fucking freezing.
Yeah.
Freezing.
The boys got in a great session this morning. So, yeah, ready to rock and roll.
JP, talk to us.
Yeah, good, bro. Good. Just hit a PB this morning. Always a good way to start the day. 5 kilos on my PB. I thought you were gonna put the wow. Yeah, good. Just happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, boys.
Let's go.
Surrounded by great company. Hit a PB this morning, which is always good. We're here on the Dropouts Podcast, here to bring a bit of light, shed a bit of insight on our journey, thus through the business life and through our personal life, and just coming together to just share our experiences and provide a little bit of insight into what it's like when you take the path less traveled.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, we even some of you might know we actually we literally changed the name last week while we were recording.
Mid-practice
because we're all talking about each other's stories and we're like, oh, you dropped out. Oh, you dropped out.
I dropped out.
We all dropped out.
Oh,
let's fucking
what a name.
Yeah. Shawnee, give the people out there a bit of an insight as to your journey to where you are today and
Who are you?
Who are you, Sean?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So I've been in the fitness industry, fitness and health industry for about 13 years this year, I think, coming up. So I've been a personal trainer. I probably was that predominantly for about 9 years, maybe 10 years of that. And then
you said you were I remember you mentioned last week you used to see your dad train a lot, right?
Yeah,
and that's what kind of got you into it.
Yeah, it's 100%. So back in the day, my dad was a single parent from probably the age of 8. I was, and he obviously didn't have too many people that could look after us, me and my sister. So he used to take us to the gym, and we used to go in the pool there, or just sit on the couch and just watch. So that was a pretty big influence in me getting into personal training. That's definitely a big influence there. But been doing that for about 9 years, and then on the back of that, the last probably 3 years, I think, or a little bit longer, I've been teaching, which I've been teaching at a place called Fit College, and now moving into the mindset health space now. So it's been a long journey, learn a lot. When I first, and this will probably come into when we talk about how we came to Dropouts, the name Dropouts and what our journey was there, but my life before that at school and how I was at school and how it's sort of done a massive 180, getting into the personal training space. 180
Can't
gym.
go past
Shout out to 180, one of the greatest gyms
100%.
in Sydney.
Speaking of 180, you taught Jules, right?
Yeah.
That's how
Jules and then
the
Leah, who was a trainer there as well.
Yeah,
so her Leah, Jules, Leah, and then also Cez as well, who's a PT now. So
sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, did she just finish recently or something?
yeah, she finished. I think it was beginning of the year.
Oh,
maybe.
good on her.
Yeah, and then she's now PT at Vision in Balcombe Hills. So,
Amazing.
she's smashing
JP, what's your story? How are you a dropout?
Oh,
A
shit,
drop kick.
yeah.
Sorry, dropout.
Bit of both. So my back, Maddie knows, but Maddie knows from living it. But yeah, my background's Egyptian Sudanese, right? So everyone in the family is, you can count the number of people on a few fingers who don't have a degree and who, everyone's a pharmacist, a lawyer, a doctor,
100%.
engineer, you know what I mean? So going through school, I always found it not tough because I had a great time at school, but I was never the type to sit behind the desk and I was just fucking my knees always just tapping.
Yeah, you had ADHD, man.
Too much
energy.
hypo, right?
Yeah.
I was a smart kid, and I did really well in primary school when I didn't have to rely on any work whatsoever. I purely just relied on.
Yeah, I think we were all good at primary school. I was pretty good at primary school.
Yeah, okay, fuck yourself. I was school captain, bitch.
But I could draw some pictures, tell you.
I was prep school captain, all right, motherfucker.
Nice, that's good.
I was the library monitor, computer monitor, debating.
You would have been
whole kid in the caboodle.
You would have been a great school
And then,
captain.
as soon as it was to my parents' dismay, as soon as I hit year 7, I was like, oh, okay, class 2. Then year 8, class 3. Year 9, class 5. And then all of a sudden,
just dropping
downhill.
off.
And that's just because I could no longer rely on my What's coming here?
Wrong one. Oh, we'll get it up later.
Anyway, I've got a time limit here, don't I? I can't just sit here and talk about myself.
Yeah, go for it.
Anyway, so yeah, long story short, I found that difficult in terms of like just my ability to actually sit down and work through the system the way it was prescribed to me, you know, which is like sit down, study, memorize, regurgitate information, and then produce a result and be ranked, like do slightly better than your colleagues, you know, in order to, you know, anyway. So yeah, then I went to uni, which was like typically the prescribed path. I went there for 1 year and then I just was like I hated it. Funnily enough, there's only like, I think there's probably like 2 people that know this, but I said I deferred uni, but really my GPA was that close to 1 that they sent me a letter. I'll never forget it. I got it in the mail and I lived with my parents at the time. So thank fuck I opened the mail before them. And I got the letter and the letter literally looking at it and they're just like, you've been suspended for a year.
Suspended?
Like legit suspended.
Shit.
Like you can't come back for 12 months.
I didn't even know that could happen.
Yeah, just a nuisance in class.
Cooked, bro. I literally chopped up that letter. I shat myself first and foremost, but I chopped up that letter. No one had ever seen it.
Do your parents know now?
They'll know after that. After they hear this.
Mum and dad, yep.
Following on from uni, then you were able to actually make quite a successful career and have proved the haters wrong.
Yeah, so basically at that point, what choice did I have other than like to hit the workforce? So I was like shitting myself, applied for jobs, ended up getting a job in recruitment. Yeah, agency recruitment was a tough gig. Did that for a couple of years. It was like really hardcore like environment for sales, which is really good in terms of that shitty first job, as they say. We used to come in at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. in the morning, 8 a.m. And my director used to come around with seek ads. And in recruitment, obviously you want to bring jobs on from companies, recruit for them. And she used to hand out these seek ads and we used to literally cold call CFOs. Anyway, went on and started at LinkedIn, was at LinkedIn for about 5 years, but just kind of worked my way up there. That was like dream job for a recruiter to get a job at LinkedIn. So anyway, we can go on about this for yonks, but yeah, got a job at LinkedIn, been working in tech sales for 7 years now. So working at a startup now called Rejig, HR Tech, shout out Rejig, Zero Waste to Potential. Very aligned with the dropouts.
Do you think your ability to talk shit has helped you in sales?
Man, I've been talking. That's the thing. I think there's a lot of things. Natural talking shit. Well, since probably working in retail, to be honest, like 9 months working at Grady, it was called Grady Union, but then now it's Event Cinemas and then Nike. And then, so I've just been talking my whole.
Yeah, that's a good place to start, isn't it? Connecting 100%. With people, communicating. But what about when you got into recruitment, when you went to the agency, was that something that you wanted to do? Was it recruitment or was that just the job you were given?
Oh, so as in when I worked, no. So at the time, I had a girlfriend at the time. Her sister was in agency recruitment, and she was like, "Oh, you know, you're a good talker. You like sales. You like HR and human resources. Why don't you give that a crack?" That wasn't like that was never the plan. I like fell into it right at all. Like that was never the plan. But once I decided that I wanted to move out of there into like a sales vertical role because I knew I was really passionate about sales and business development. So I wanted to move into like a purely sales vertical role where I wasn't looking after customers. I just wanted to sell. And that's when I was like, I'm going to list out these top 10 companies I want to work for. And LinkedIn was at the top of that list. I ended up like hunting down 4 or 5 recruiters from there. I convinced one of them to interview me and I'll never forget it. I think I mentioned this to you guys, but I remember walking into LinkedIn with like my red tie, like blazer, briefcase, thinking I'm some businessman. Right. I walk in there and I get to the lobby and I looked inside and there's like these software engineers and these other dudes just sitting on beanbags with their headphones and t-shirts on, and they look over like. Yeah, you were
expecting something super corporate, walk in, black and white, you know what I mean?
I didn't expect to be walking into like the Google lobby, like you know what I mean? I didn't expect that sort of vibe, but I was like, oh, this is cool, I guess.
I think I did that as well when I went for my first personal training job after I finished my certification. I went in like my best outfit, and then everybody else was wearing their tracksuit pants and their shoes, and I was like, oh. So yeah, a bit out of place there, but yeah, that was my whole perception. That was like, no, I've got to dress well, got to look good, got to smell nice, etc. So yeah, I was the same as well.
I think then as well, like there was this concept of like authenticity and just being yourself. It wasn't really a thing. It was like, fake it till you make it. Like be what you think they want. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which I think like is still true to a certain extent, but I think now it's like bring your whole self is much more encouraged.
Yeah, it's actually gone completely the other way now with corporates because we're so accepting and there's fucking political correctness and everyone can come and be how they want. It's gone from being black and white suit, briefcase to slowly accepting people to be who they are. And now we've probably gone the other way now. And this is a bit of a controversial argument, but I think we've gone too far the other way where it's like, hey, come and be whatever you want. Identify as a dinosaur. Come right in. You want to be a guy going into the girls' toilets? You can do that. So that's one for if you guys are watching this on the shorts and want to
jumped on that.
Yeah,
but I think most people would agree that we've gone far the other way.
100%. 100%.
But would say, for example, if you had another interview at some stage, how would you go? Would you dress up?
Yeah, good point. No, I mean, for example, even like, you know, if I was to be speaking with another company now, you know what I mean? I'd be
pretty casual.
You know what though? I mean, it's obviously for my industry, that's what it is. It's tech. I mean, for media, it's the same with you, right?
Totally.
T-shirts and
I think it's all about authenticity. I think for me, I wish I was a good liar, I should say, but I think every time that I've ever led in with the intention of, you know, not being honest or not being open and truthful, it's always come back to bite me in the ass. And that's something that I've done in my business and personal life, is leading with honesty and being open. And I think that often gets you the best result, because when you come in with, you know, a cover over, people can see through it straight away.
Yeah, and you feel rigid too.
Yeah, you do.
You feel weird because you're like putting on an act and you're
correct.
Like, you're trying to follow some sort of script.
But on the other side of it, let's go from the other side. If you're a manager or if you're an owner of a business, what would you expect? Would you say like, okay, well, I'm happy for whoever comes through the door, or I'll expect them to be dressed in a certain way?
No, I think
depends on the industry, I guess. I guess it depends on the industry as well.
But the other thing is that like, I think, you know, we're all at that point now probably where this is, you know, any sort of partnership or any sort of relationship from an employer, you know, let's just talk in the job context now, but it's completely mutual. It's the same when, let's just say you're running a business and you want to bring a client on. I feel like now we understand like the concept of like mutual benefit. Like, so even if someone I was to go into an interview or whatever, a certain particular way, and someone was to go, oh, that doesn't sit right with me, I would be appreciative and I'd be like, yeah, okay, that means that's not right for me. Yeah. If that person
this place is not right for me,
like that about me, or thinks that I should be a certain way, then like that's the wrong person, that's the wrong environment, that's the wrong place for me.
Doesn't align with your values or whatnot. Exactly right. Because when I was doing management through my PT career, I would expect that high level of, I'd have a high expectation for someone to come in and dress X amount of way, but that's because that's what I was told over and over again. Like if you want to go into an interview, you have to, you know, be before you become, look the part, etc., etc. Yeah. So that was my expectation as well when I was in those positions. Totally, yeah. But I think but even
you can
now,
see through that now.
Well, yeah, I think
like, that you know that that's just like, for example, then maybe you didn't know as much about the substance, whereas now you know the substance so well that you're like, I'm not going to necessarily judge this book by its cover. I know what substance and attitude and all that stuff looks like.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because if someone didn't dress the way that I thought they should have or had the expectation, I would keep it in the back of my mind.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So, but now, like, you know, things have changed. I think now if I had someone coming in and I was in that management position, I'll probably be a little bit more, okay, well, they're dressed like a PT. Okay, cool. Like, they got their kicks on, they got their tracksuit pants on. Yeah, sweet. Yeah. That's fine.
But you're right. And look, there's a difference between like they're wearing the trackies. Obviously, like, you know, someone's not going to be coming in hopefully wearing the trackies they would have bed.
Yeah, you alluded to it before. You alluded to it before that it varies across industries. I mean, like different. PT coming in from a corporate sector, and then myself who's spent a long time in hospitality. I haven't ever had those expectations. It was always, you know, rock up, cool barista, wear the cool sneakers, wear the cool jeans, you know, whatever it was.
Was it just you, like from the outset, when you started actually, hold on a second. How did you even get into hospo?
Tell us
through that.
Interesting story.
Tell us your story.
The story. Well, I just fell in love with going to coffee shops and cafes and restaurants. I always had a deep passion and love for food.
Actually, let's just give context to the people. What are we talking? Because obviously we know each other, but Maddie had a cafe, but give that context anyway first. Maddie.
Right. Well, before I get into opening the cafe, it was always stemmed from a deep love and passion for food, and that was thanks to my upbringing and mum's cooking at home, obviously, and grandmother's cooking as well. You know, come back from an Egyptian background, similar to JP, and mum's side being Syrian, always had great food growing up. Family was always brought together with food at the table, so I'm super blessed and lucky to have had that, I think, which, you know, planted the love of food and hospitality. Growing up, you have guests come over, you have family and friends come over, you set the table, and that's just the love language. It's just how we show you know, hospitality and love towards one another. So it was something that came naturally. And I think that combined with the cool aesthetic interior design of cafes and just the vibe in general, I was always very attracted to that. So it was just something that, you know, always piqued my interest. And having opened the cafe in 2020, we sold at the end of last year, but having opened the cafe in 2020, I didn't realize how long that was, you know, in the pipeline, because, you know, boys I was playing footy with and guys that I was growing up with were like, far out, man, I can't believe you went and opened that cafe. It was something that you always dreamed of. And I only came to realize that in the last couple of years. So yeah, opened the cafe in Marylands in 2020. Best experience ever, man. I learned a lot. First business, obviously, I probably wouldn't recommend.
You were young, man.
I was young.
Yeah, that's right.
I still am young,
Which
man.
is fucking ballsy to do at such a young
well,
age.
you're
'Cause you would have been
21,
like
22?
21.
Yeah, I had just turned 21. We had went and looked at the site at the F45 in Marylands. I just turned 20, and then about 6 to 8 months went by, and then we finally signed the lease and got things cracking. November 11. It was a Wednesday of 2020. Is the day we opened.
Mate, he knows the numbers.
I remember.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was an 11/11.
So with opening your business, was there an influence to be a business owner from somebody in your family, or
Yeah,
was it?
Totally. I think subconsciously, yes. My dad was in real estate for such a long time, had his own agency, and was very successful in the hills. And my brother obviously got two older brothers, Michael and Rob, who I love dearly. Rob, super successful in his business, has a construction company, and just I think following along in their footsteps and just seeing how tenacious they were and driven they were and intrinsically, I guess, motivated to go out and pursue those things definitely had an effect on me. And I think, just seeing that, their success wasn't something that came overnight, pre-instilled in me the belief that, if this was the first business that I ran and that it failed, I was never scared to take that initial dive and that initial step into doing that. And it's something that a lot of people I think struggle with, which is, what are people going to say? What if it fails? What if it doesn't go right? I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this. All those feelings are natural. And of course they came to me when I went to first open the business, but you silence those. You get up, you put your best foot forward and you try your best, and often good things come from that. So yeah, like you alluded to earlier, the business was definitely, I guess, around me and something that I wanted to pursue wholeheartedly. Absolutely.
And that's important, eh? Like if you have that influence from such a young age, I mean, you opened it when you were so young.
Yeah.
So having older brothers, your father as well. That influence as a child is so important for whatever you might want to do with your life. So 100%.
No, totally. Well, I just think, now when I look at, younger kids coming up, I think, man, it's so important to have those right role models and figures around you that, make you not scared to go and make those mistakes and not being cradled by your parents to, keep it safe, son, and don't take those risks. I think the only way that we learn is, from falling down and dusting ourselves and getting back up. So
yeah, it's important. Like even... What did you call? Actually, even when you called it Brother Bear, I was thinking like it's good. It's important to have a Brother Bear.
Brother Bear. Yeah, two older brothers, as I mentioned. I think we went through a couple of names, and then
that's a bad name.
Good name.
Yeah, just start with Brother Bear. I think after the name was conceptualized and we went with the branding and we drew up the whole logo and everything, Brother Bear to me is just like a friendly, warm figure. The logo for the shop, I've actually got it tattooed here.
I thought you did.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Is a silhouette.
That's a fucking hectic logo.
It's a silhouette of like a little boy holding a teddy bear, and then.
Wait, shall we change the podcast then?
Rest in peace. Brother Bear's done. We'll leave that in the
Fly
past.
the coop. Go on, yeah.
But yeah, we're able to help a lot of people at that shop, which I think, we're talking about, I think, success here on this podcast and what it means to be successful. And I think at least my definition of success, I think, has changed after having the business and then selling the business, because we oftentimes we define success as, our income or the monetary or, the physical things that we own. And having ran the business now, I think success to me is, well, what does success look like? Success looks like going to the gym every morning. Success is defined by the acts rather than the end goal. And it's the process rather than the end goal. If we're doing the things that, a successful person does, then by doing that, we are successful now. And I think if you're going to kick the can down the road and say, oh, I'm not successful until I have this, I'm not successful until I've done that, then you'll never truly attain that success. And for me, success is right now, we are all successful by the things that we do, the people that we surround ourselves with. Yeah. And, if you don't have that mindset, then I think you'll constantly be trying to attain something and you'll never actually
grab it. I think it's all like relative too, right? Like I think that often the reason why success is an outcome for some is because that's just at what point of their life they're in, right? Like, I mean, if at this particular point in my life, I've got a mate who just had his wife just gave birth, right? At this point in his life, if his outcome is like, I want to have these things or I want to have this amount of money, that might just simply be because that is what he wants and able to live his life. So it makes sense that maybe his success is potentially defined by an amount of money that he potentially needs or wants to feel comfortable in his life. So I think it's all like it can be relative, which is why like, you know, a lot of the time, and I feel like that definition changes all the time, right? Like
totally.
I feel like my definition of success probably had absolutely nothing to do with money.
What is your definition of success?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know. I haven't really necessarily thought about what my definition of success is, but I can say that it's changed dramatically since I probably last thought about it. And just my gut tells me that now it's more to do with, it is probably more to do with like my earnings at the moment, right? Because like for me now, I've entered a part of my life that is, you know, it's taking more money out of my pocket. And therefore, in order for me to do what I want to do, me and my wife, and then potentially to set us up for, you know, having a family and stuff like that, is more to do with the monetary right now. But if you would ask me, you know, when I was working at LinkedIn, I'm like, I do not care how much money goes in my pocket. My biggest thing is like learning, growing, and then...
And that was a stage in your life.
Right? And like, don't get me wrong, I might get back to that stage entirely, but just right now.
Right now,
That totally makes sense.
You know? And I think the fact that it changes is like, it's good to accept that.
What about you, Shawnee?
Yeah, I think that for me, success comes down to you living through your values, finding fulfillment in the values that you hold true to yourself. So whatever your top 5 values are, you know, being able to find fulfillment within those, I think that's what brings success. So for example, in my office at home, on one of my whiteboards, I have my top 5 values and I have my top 6 strengths. And I find that when I live through those, I find massive fulfillment. And then at the end of those, I'll find that success. And the hard thing about that though, is people, they look for their values, and you do this a lot in corporate and in work, like, oh, what are your top values, etc. But people don't actually know what they should do with them. Okay, well, here are my values. Okay, well, great. But what I teach some of my students and also my clients is when we find those values, it's about first and foremost creating a value statement. Okay, what does that value actually mean to you? And then also creating rules around those values. So, for example, my number 1 value, which has been it for a long time, is health. And you boys have known me for some time now, so you probably agree that health is a big one for me, through nutrition, through training, etc. And then it goes down to my second one is growth, then contribution, and then it is well, those are my top 3. I'll talk about my top 3. Leave it there.
Talk about those rules too. I'm keen to hear about like those rules and what those rules
mean.
And
so, for example, health, right? My value statement for health is to make sure that I am efficient through my health, through nutrition and training. Very, very simple. And then the rules around those are, okay, very simple rules are like, I'm going to make sure that I exercise 5 times per week. I'm going to make sure that I eat 90% of my food is nutrient dense, not energy dense, and so on and so forth. So when you find these values, whether it's top 3 or top 5, you have to create rules that you're going to follow so you can find that fulfillment.
So you can actually implement them. Yeah, that's great. I think sometimes it looks like we've just got these goals up on a whiteboard and without having those rules surrounding them. I mean, I don't take that approach, but something I'll probably start doing because I love that is actually making sure that it's, you know, achievable and not just some far off. Because so many people wake up and they're like, you know what, start of the month, we're going to start training this week, or I'm going to start taking my health seriously. But when you start to unpack that, what does that actually look like in your day-to-day life?
I mean, they could be rules or expectations.
If people break those rules, like what does that say to you? I know people you've worked with, or even for yourself, like have you ever had, I guess, those values that you'd set, maybe not yourself, maybe a client or whatever, values that you've set and then you've gone and seen that either you've broken them or someone's broken them consistently. Does that mean you've either got to be stricter on yourself or potentially that's not your real values? Yeah,
that might not be your real values, or, you know, and again, you can do tests and stuff like that online to find your true values, and it's hard to sit there and just come up with your values because there's some that you might miss. Okay, so when you go through your values test or when you're looking at those, obviously there's different types of questions that can come up with the values that are true to you. But when I look at those values that I have, my top 3, I'm like, yeah, 100%. Those are 100% my values, like health, growth, contribution. And again, you know, with regards to how I was at school compared to how I am now, growth probably wasn't something that I was big on back then. And I'll go through my dropout story later, but now it's so massive to me. I'm reading, doing courses, all those sorts of things like that. So how it sort of works is, you know, there's 4 things that we look at. So number 1, there's stories that we are given as we're children. So between the ages of 0 and 7, you know, by our parents, by our culture, beliefs, by our religion, by, you know, society. So these stories dictate our beliefs. So those beliefs link into our values, and those values link into our identity, and then that's our behavior, right? How we actually behave. So when we look at goals, for example, if I have a goal that I want to try and achieve, if my beliefs and or values don't align with that goal, I'm going to unconsciously self-sabotage.
That's right.
And this is what happens. Okay. This is what happens with people all the time, right? They have this goal. Yeah, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but because their beliefs and values don't align, they self-sabotage. So unconsciously they do that, but consciously they give themselves shit about it.
Yeah.
So like, oh, why can't I do this? Why can't I get up at 5 a.m. and train?
Yeah,
What,
okay.
you know, and then there's just this cycle that goes and goes and goes. And this is the big reason why people aren't able to achieve their goals, because their identity doesn't align with it.
Right.
So what I do with my clients is I go, okay, well, let's figure out what these stories are. And that comes back to people being self-aware of who they are.
Totally.
That's the biggest thing, like curiosity about who you are. Because we're always looking out like, oh, who's that person, that person. And we're judging, everybody. And I'm not saying like, again, people are like, don't judge yourself. Yeah, like look yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, let's get to reality.
Yeah.
Let's look at it. And then you can obviously go from there.
Even in that Can't Hurt Me, I started listening to David Goggins' book, and he's like if you're fat, look in the mirror and say, I'm fat. I need to lose weight because it's really unhealthy. If I'm dumb, say, I'm dumb. I need to study. I need to get smarter. And it's not because you're just trying to beat yourself up. It's because you need to come to the terms with what the reality of the situation is. You know?
So get that reality and you can bounce it off from there. But then again, like you have to figure out those stories and where they came from. So what was your upbringing like? Because the most important part or the most important time for us is between the ages 0 and 7.
Yeah, it's
That's
when you form your
we're
core
more
beliefs.
influential.
When you
it's
form
very
your
good.
core
It's a
beliefs.
developmental stage in terms of in child psychology. They always talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, you
So
see
for me,
this-
those values are like, that's why I looked at those values and those are really important to me. So I can find that fulfillment and success, I guess what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And again, like still working on them as you do daily, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. And Sean, I'm going to pose a question to you in a little bit, which goes back to that story about reading and your upbringing, if you care to share that, because you've shared that with me a little bit earlier, and I think it'll be a great story for those listening about the core beliefs that we form when we're at a young age. And I just think it's crazy how those subconscious patterns are instilled in us between the ages of 0 and 7, how we believe about ourselves and the things that are, I guess, drilled into us when we're younger. You see it a lot with really smart or really good looking kids. I went to school with a kid in primary school, and he was just one of those kids, smart at every subject, gun athletics day,
One of my mates
strong
like
in
that.
the gym, really good looking, good with all the girls. And then as he started to get older and we moved into high school, we actually moved from the same primary school into the same high school. I started to see him need that validation from others. And because he was so used to that validation externally, that as he started to grow and as he started to get older, that starts to wear off. And you see that as well with, young or pretty girls that are in the popular group, and that they don't have that attention there to grasp from anyone anymore, and they struggle going into the future. Whereas,
And they try to find it from other things.
they try and find it from other things.
Right?
Definitely not. And that's
potentially men and women.
Men and women, but we're speaking, I guess, generally across the board here. And then that's where you fall into addiction. You look into to other substances. For me, it's my relationship with God, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, so that I can look to Him to be a role model for me, so that I can, go and find wholeness and fulfillment in Him. JP, did you ever have any of those stories growing up where it's like, you had these core beliefs that maybe you needed to unlearn, or maybe you're still on that journey now?
You know what? I think for me, growing up, especially when it comes to things like accepting who accepting who I am and being, being myself. I was always the type in high school, I was trying to, in year 7, year 8, I was like trying to get in with the Aussie kids, I used to wear like all the skate brands, like Etnies, Globe, had the skate shoes, and I was trying to get in with the, with the Aussie crew.
Yeah.
And like, they were like, a little bit like not accepting. And then I had my cousins ripping into me for like, what the fuck are you wearing all this
I was
skate
like that
for,
too.
man? You know what I mean?
Like,
So I had like, I was so I couldn't catch a break anywhere. I was like in between two worlds. So, I think for me, this question is more about identity. I didn't really know who I was. Like, I'm not ashamed to say it because I think it like shaped who I am. But like, I got shit at school, early years especially.
Yeah.
I copped I don't know, bullying's a strong word, but like it was, but like, and there were times like, right, I didn't want to go to school, like I had anxiety. Like,
I get
when
what
say
you're saying.
anxiety, I'm not saying I had like, really.
hey, there's no shame in that,
But
man.
I'm just saying in general, like there were times where, and I don't want to use the word anxiety, but I didn't want to go to school because I was like, I can't see this person because they're going to fucking give me shit or they're going to pull me down. Like I remember I had one guy who like literally grabbed me from behind. He was mates with all the guys in the year above. One of those blokes, mate, pulled me back on my ass when I was at my locker. And then I got up and all the boys are around me. I'm like, fucking, what am I going to do here?
You know what? I was the same, man. I used to cop it. I remember so hard. Like, and me too. Like, I was a little shit, man. Year 7, year 8. even started year 9. I think as I started to get older, I started to outgrow it. But I was just a dickhead. I was dealing with a lot of things at
You had
home.
older brothers too. You're like,
I had older
I don't give a
brothers.
fuck, my brother's will bash you.
Yeah.
My brother's best friend.
Flagpole 3
My
o'clock.
brother will
someone
fucking
else.
come bash you.
No, man. I there was like one kid in particular that I used to give it to. He's actually a good friend of mine now. But I just remember looking back at like those things now, and I often think about the type of person that I was, and I was just like, I was a little bully, man. I was a little prick, and I think that was to do with my upbringing and certain
It was
things.
Maddie. We went to the same school. It was Maddie.
He pulled you down.
But alternatively, I used to cop it from the older boys. I was a pretty big kid, man. I was probably the same height that I am now back in year 6 and 7. And
Spewing. So everyone else started shooting up around you.
all the year 9, year
After
10
that.
kids when I was in year 7, I used to walk through the yard and they used to be like, hey, fuck this kid. He's like a really big kid. And they used to just give me shit, and I could handle it because I was a tough kid. But I think inside it used to hurt, man. I used to walk around, and now as I've grown older and I see, even when I'm up at Castle Towers or I'm up at the shopping centre and I see, someone picking on another kid, it hurts, man. It's not a good thing to be, and it just shows that signs of insecurity. And I think when you're wholehearted and you're confident in who you are, then you don't need to go put that shit on anyone else because you're worried about yourself and you're worried about your own path. So,
and that's the thing you have to watch out for as well. Like, I'm not saying obviously bullying is not good, like 100%, but one of the coaching principles one of the 3 that I try to teach is everybody acts in a certain way for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, there's always a reason behind it, right? Like whatever it may be. And for boys, because at school, bro, we used to like throw each other's bags on the roofs, push each other in the bush. Like, we used to do dumb shit, right? Like, and then you go to the principal's office or your teacher, whoever, and they'll sit you down and you go, oh, why'd you do that? And you'll be like, But really, the reason why is because you want to make your friends laugh. You want to be in the cool group or whatever it was, and we act out in those ways.
seeking validation.
Seeking
but also
validation,
to put
so
yourself up, you know what
in
I
the
mean?
pecking order, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And that's school, right? You're jostling for like, finding yourself in your group
It's
as
just
well.
a social
Yeah.
war.
But I was literally I was a smart ass. Like, I was a natural born smart ass. I was quite small growing up. But
Still are, mate.
well, yeah.
No, he's the biggest guy in the fucking gym, is what I'm saying.
But like, even though I had a dad that was big, like that always had that protection, I thought I did. But I was like all the older kids, I would always get dead arms from them because I would be smart ass, I would be cheeky, but because I was pretty quick and I was pretty agile, I'd always run away. Yeah. But then when they caught me, then it was like I copped it. But and that was I didn't see that as bullying. I was the one that was smart ass. I was, So
I think there's a fine line between bullying and I guess it's all the intention. I think when you're throwing kids' bags around or you're messing around or you're calling someone a funny name, I think if it's consistently drilled in someone, that's when it probably constitutes bullying. But when you're having a laugh with your mates and that's just the nature of the schoolyard.
It's probably how it's received.
It's fucking puberty, man. It's puberty.
It's
when you're 14, 15 and
I can
you're...
intend not to hurt your feelings, but if I just chuck your bag on the roof every
But I'll
day,
even-
you're going to be like, fuck, spewing.
But would you think that even if you were a bully at school, even in your adult life, you would probably look back at it and be like, man, that was probably...
Bro, there's one guy who I know now, I'm friends with him, and he used to do that shit. And whenever, bro, it's actually funny because we're in a group of people, and sometimes I'll be like, it's funny because I'll call him out, but then I'm like, am I bullying him back right now? By saying like,
Turn
this
the
guy
tables.
bullied me. And I'll be like, this guy bullied me in high school. And then people will be like, oh, fuck. And then he's like, no, I didn't do that. I wasn't trying to like...
I think a lot of the times you'll see bullies that have, grown up and they had such dominance and, a presence on the playground or in classrooms. And now afterwards, they've dwindled. They haven't got that ecosystem where they're validated.
A lot of them have like changed too.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone.
Some might take it
seen
into the
some of them.
adult. Some might take it into the adult life. Some might change. But I think even when I got into like being into year 11, year 12, like maybe I took, and I think it's all a product of your environment. But when you're potentially somebody that is bullied or whatever, you might get into that position of power, and then you start to do that as well, potentially, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people do go through that. I might have gone through that as well when I got into year 11, 12, 13, doing the same things that was done to me as well, potentially. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, boys. And I think like the reason school came on as a chat just then is because we were talking about how those beliefs are formed not only when we're younger, but reinforced as we moved through the school playground. I mean, sports was a big one as well. If you're a popular kid, I mean,
Sports,
I went to a rugby school. Shout out Oak Hill College in Castle Hill. Great
Massive
school.
rugby school.
Massive rugby school.
Union.
Yeah, big rugby union school. And I remember even like, playing in the first 15 and playing the second 15. I wasn't consistently on the first team. I was a rugby league player by background, and then trying to come in and learn the game of rugby was quite challenging.
Yeah.
A little bit more technical in the ruck, and there's a little bit more going on instead of a simple play the ball. But yeah, I just remember looking up to those year 12 kids when I was in year 7 going, man, that's the epitome of what a cool guy at school is. Dates the pretty girls, captain of the first 15 side. And it's funny how, again, like that's what defined what success was when I was younger, and now I'm moving up, going through life, and success, that definition of success, as you said, is constantly changing depending on the stage and where you're at in life. So interesting there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also like the movies that were around those days back in the 90s and stuff,
Yeah.
it was like the prom king, prom queen, the football star. And obviously it's from America.
Remember
Like
the Titans.
we watch those sorts of things. Great movie. But I think like looking back now, I'm like, bro, I wish I was the smart kid.
Totally.
Like, like how my values have
Always
changed.
in hindsight.
Like,
that
always in
happens,
hindsight,
yeah.
100%.
But I think as well,
I wish I learned more. I wish I put more emphasis in school, etc. Not so much because there were things that I wanted to do there. Like, I don't like math, science, and all these sorts of things like that. But if I could really get good at doing the work, being consistent with doing work, sitting down, working out a problem solving, etc., then I could have been better earlier on, coming out of school. I was, like you were going to ask me about the reading, but
Yeah, please fill us in on that, Shawnee. So what's the go there with the whole reading story?
yeah, it sort of links into that story as well. Like I did a post about this on my Instagram, but when I was, I read 2 books at school. So 2 books.
Your whole school
Like
life?
whole school life. Like I
Wow.
probably read books with my parents when I was a kid,
yeah.
but I only read 2 books. One was the Da Vinci Code, which I don't know how I read that, but I
That's
did.
a
and
great book, by the way.
Yeah, it was a great book. But then I read another book. I can't remember what it's called. But the reason why I sort of had that belief, the belief was that I couldn't read. And that came from year 8. So we went into class and we did a reading test, as you do, reading tests, numeracy, literacy. And the next day, the teacher pulled me and another kid into the office. And she said, oh, look, you boys are 2 to 3 years behind in your reading. And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, I can't read. And that was what I said in my head. Fuck. Yeah, I was like, oh, I can't read.
That's
You
actually
can't even
fun.
read.
I can imagine poor little Shawnee. Like we shouldn't be
Yeah.
laughing at this, but that instilled that belief
That's
in you.
heavy.
Yeah, 100%. So from then on, like that whole belief was that I couldn't read. So every time that it would be reading time, I would obviously shy away. I would look down. Every time we went to the library, make sure you guys go pick a book so you can read. I'll just be walking through just with my hand against the book.
Shout
just
out Money Mayweather.
And then I'll look out to everybody that was reading and I would get angry at them. I'll be like, oh, these guys, they can read, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, that just compounded this belief over and over again. So I never read other than the Da Vinci Code. Again, I was so happy when I did that. So that belief was instilled from
For
year
someone that
8.
couldn't read, for you to pick up the Da Vinci Code and read,
I
I'm
know.
just saying, what the?
Bro, I read it in 2
How long did it
weeks.
take you to read?
Like a week or 2 weeks.
What?
I don't know.
You could read.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes
But
those beliefs
they'll-
aren't true.
No, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
beliefs
right,
are just
but
that.
It's
They're-
just funny that is the specific
The
book that was chosen when you're like, I can't read. I'm
Yeah,
just
I get
gonna
I don't know
pick
why,
up the Da
but
Vinci Code.
so every time through school, right? Like we'll go to English, and obviously you have to read your English. The teacher would give us our book, and I'll be like, "Oh, miss, just for my reference, will we be watching the video in class?" And she'll be like, "Yep." I'm like, "Perfect." Put it in the bottom of my bag, never read it, and I'll wait for us to watch the video. Yeah, because I'm a visual learner, I kinesthetic, right? So anyway, that was my belief all the way up until how that belief changed. Because I've read a lot of books now, which is great. But how that belief changes when I became a personal trainer. Becoming a personal trainer was the first time I was like, this is something that I really love. Like I could see myself doing this.
Wow.
Because before that at school, I did economics, I did architecture, I did a PE, which was linked into personal training. I did all these different things and I tried different things. I just didn't like any of them. Even PE, like even when we learned about the muscles and stuff, I was just like, I don't want to learn. I didn't care. So getting into personal training, I was like, man, this is something that I really enjoy, something that I love. I went and did the certificate 3 and 4 course. And when I got to my first employee, they put a piece of paper in front of me and they said, if you want to be successful, you need to read these books. So it was a list of all these books. And I was just like,
Damn.
I didn't say anything. So I didn't want to be like, I can't read. I was like, oh.
How old were you at this point?
This was later on. This is when I was like 21, 22.
Fuck.
So this was,
That's
yeah.
heavy, all right.
So what I done was I put that away and I just started watching YouTube videos. Started watching Les Brown and Eric Thomas, and this sort of started my personal development journey and wanting to be successful. Whereas before that, I was just like, bro, I was drinking in the weekends, like just whatever, doing the wrong things. And then my boss at the time gave me a book called Tribal Leadership. And he goes, oh, read this. I think you can become a really good leader within the organization. Read this, and then we'll get you another book later on. So got the book, and I opened it, read the first chapter, closed the book, and I didn't know what was in the first chapter. Read the first 2 pages, but I blanked out, and I just read whatever. Like I didn't read, man. Right?
You don't retain it.
You know, I didn't retain it. So my partner at the time was an English teacher, and she said, what you should do is go outside, read the book like you're reading to an audience, like really enthusiastically, say it loud like you're reading to an audience. So I said, all right, went outside, it was nice and sunny, and I did that, and then I got to the chapter and I was like, fuck, like I remember what was in the chapter. Then I did the second chapter, and then I did the third chapter, and then I read the book, and I was like, it was like a massive moment. I was like, holy shit, like I've just read this personal development book that if I read these books, I'm going to become successful, I'm going to become a great personal trainer, yada, yada, yada. And then from there, I started like continuing to read.
You unlearned that belief.
Yeah, so that belief was obviously broken from then.
Wow.
And then I went on and started reading. And the second book that I read from there, which I recommend for anybody that sort of hasn't gone through a personal development journey, is called what's it called? Was it tribal leadership? Was the one that I'll think about it. I'll come back to you. Yeah, I've gone blank there. But yeah, now I've read over 50 books in the space of like 10 years.
Wow.
And yeah, and that's why that second value of mine is growth now, because it's really important. So
that's amazing, man. I've never been a reader myself. I like the idea of reading. There are a few books that I've read, a couple of self-help books, and some of the ones that are, you know, like Atomic Habits and your Think and Grow Rich, and some of the ones that are around a lot of successful people that say that you should be reading.
I got it. The Magic of Thinking Big.
The Magic of Thinking Big. There you go.
Dr. Jay Schwartz, I believe it was. The Magic of Thinking Big.
Okay.
That was a good book because it's I don't know, it's just a book about thinking outside of where you currently are. Yeah. Like thinking outside yourself, thinking big, thinking like I can do this, etc. So yeah, that was the next book that I read, The Magic of Thinking Big. So that was really good.
Amazing. JP, what do you read, mate? The back of the spray can while you're taking a shit, right?
I've been reading.
Playboy.
No, a lot of time with it.
Shout out the 180 family.
My Kindle's my best friend.
Yeah, you do Kindle, don't you?
Yeah, I do Kindle because I like highlighting stuff and then going back and looking at it. Right now I'm rereading 0 to 1 just because I work for a startup and I'm in tech. The author, his name is Peter Thiel. He's one of what they call the PayPal mafia. So if you didn't know it, I'm just making sure I get all the names right. But the PayPal mafia is basically a group of like former PayPal employees. You're excused, mate. Keep going. Yeah, former PayPal employees and who've like basically founded or developed like companies. So for example, you've got Peter Thiel, who founded like Palantir, who's listed on the New York Stock Exchange. You've got Eric, what's his name? Who founded YouTube. You've got Reid Hoffman, who founded LinkedIn, all like multi-billion-dollar. Yeah, here's the companies. So Elon Musk was part of the PayPal mafia, obviously Tesla, LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, Palantir was Peter Thiel himself, SpaceX, obviously Elon Musk, Affirm, YouTube, Yelp, Hammer. So it's nuts. It's crazy that these guys were all working at PayPal together. There's actually a really funny photo of them all sitting here. And I'm rereading that book, and it just talks about like what everything about startups. It talks about taking the world from 0 to 1. It talks about how like we're in this generation now where we have so much, we basically feel like we've conquered everything, because he's basically saying, well, because there's no more spaces on the map, people feel like there's no more new frontiers to explore. Right. Therefore, there's almost like this natural like thing that's happened where everyone's gone, oh, well, there's no new places to explore. Therefore, there's no new frontiers to explore in terms of technology. And he talks about how like when people come to doing stuff in business or in life, they should be looking to take the world from 0 to 1, not from 1 to N, which is what he's just calling like, for you to go and take more of an existing market is going from 1 to N. From you to go from 0 to 1 is for you to literally change the way, a chat GPT or something, the way that the world is done. It's
Which
obviously
is often where most of the growth happens between that 0 and 1. And like you can refer back to people's lives and like taking that first initial step, you know what I mean? And then taking that first dive.
Yeah, and he just says like that's the way that the world is going to transform. And he said like basically, you got economies like China, for example, who relentlessly copy just what the West is doing and what all these other countries do, because that's just what's done before and that's what's worked. But he's saying that if we were to continue doing things the way that they are done for centuries and centuries, something's going to go wrong. Yeah. We can't keep you say whatever you want. Like, he doesn't talk a lot about environmental damage, doesn't talk about climate change or anything like that. But he does say that like if we were to just keep doing things the exact way we're doing, and the earth is people to live on and on and on and on, it's not sustainable. So there needs to be innovation to take the world from 0 to 1. Otherwise, we'll stall, we won't survive, and what have you. So, that's what I'm reading at the moment. He like talks a lot about startups. He talks a lot about like secrets and how like people think there's no more secrets to discover. Like I was talking about new frontiers. Amazing book. So been reading that. I like reading my fiction too.
Harry Potter.
No, what's the one?
Harry Potter. Eh?
What's his name? Paulo Coelho. He's Christian. He's a Christian writer actually as well. So he's always like really nice kind of undertones there, kind of like C.S. Lewis-esque.
Right.
He's a great author. So The Alchemist, The Devil and Miss Prim. So there's a lot of like religious undertones.
I think a good point you made there is the second time you're reading it.
Second time I'm reading it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think like when I first started reading, I think my whole focus was reading books, just reading books,
as
right?
many as you can or whatever.
Yeah, and I think people will do that because obviously, Bill Gates read 20 books a day or whatever it may be. But I think it's important for people to do what you've done and read a book, immerse yourself in it, but then come back to the book and then start to take notes and then start to implement the things that you find in those books into your life. Whereas if you just jump from book to book to book to book, it's going to be hard for you to implement those things that you need to. But, well, Maddie, why don't you tell us about your dropout story? Let's get back to that because JP told us about his letter.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And then what
the
about
forced
you?
Dropout.
What about your dropout story?
Yeah, see, I like using the term dropout, and I don't at the same time.
Yeah.
I would like to use the term defer.
Defer.
That's what I try.
Following school, I really was unsure what I wanted to do. I knew that the cafe was something that I wanted to open, and I wanted to be a part of the hospitality industry in general. But just by a means of getting to that stage, I didn't know how that was going to play out. Had the conversation with my older brothers. Obviously, my family, apart from my dad, they were all, my uncle's side were all around the trades, construction, building, electrical, plumbing. I didn't want to go down that route. I had done, a couple of weeks work experience here and there in the back end of year 12 just to get a taste of it. And I didn't feel comfortable on a job site. It wasn't me. And I didn't want to, wake up every morning and go to a job site. I decided to go to uni. I studied commerce and marketing. I enrolled and I had a great time at uni. It was awesome. The reason I went to uni was so that I didn't have to start that 9-to-5 job, and it would give me a little bit of time to work at a cafe part-time and to go through uni. Went through uni, first semester, flying colours passed, and me and two mates went on a trip to Bali. Had the best time ever, 18 years old, running wild in Bali. Obviously, just standard lads trip, lots of drinking, lots of partying. And I got back to the airport in Denpasar, and I was like, man, I don't want to go home. This is awesome. I had that taste of freedom, that taste of exploring, another country, something foreign, something new, something exciting. And I remember just being there like, damn, man, I want to go back. So I booked a trip pretty much like that same day that I was in the airport back. And I had met a lot of solo travelers while I was over there. Amazing. Just people that were out exploring the world by themselves. So I booked a trip by myself to the Philippines, went for the Philippines for 3 weeks, and then Bali again on the way home. And then through the course of uni, I would save up at a coffee shop, go overseas for a couple of months, come back, go to the next semester of uni. At the end of that semester, travel again, all around Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Philippines, Japan. Really lucky like that. So I like to think that I got a lot of things done at an early age.
Like 100%.
Yeah, traveled and opened the business. But through uni, I had about 6 months, maybe a year left on that degree of the commerce and marketing degree. And then the opportunity came to open the coffee shop, and I just was like, man, Brother Bear. I was like, man, the opportunity was here. It was there for the taking. the idea of going back to uni while I knew there was an opportunity to go actually pursue my dream of opening the cafe was there. There was no questions. Mum was upset about it. She was like, come on, go finish, Habibi, go finish your degree.
You're so close, Habibi. You're so close.
So close, go finish your degree. And then, yeah, man, open the cafe and ran that, thank God. And, now I've got, like I said, 6 months to a year. If I ever go back and finish that degree, we'll see. It's
You're off the podcast.
He's going back, man. Yeah. We'll get a new dropout.
We're looking for a new dropout.
He's going back, Mum. He's going back.
Mum, it's good.
This is my belief. Again, everyone's entitled to their opinions. I think unless you're using your degree to practice, i.e. you're a doctor and you need to get your medical degree to practice, or you're an accountant, you need that ticket to go practice accounting. Yeah. I just think I learned more running my business in the 2.5 years than I did at the 2.5 to 3 years that I was at uni. And that just comes from experience. And, even here on the podcast, there's things that I want to, have my input and say, but I also want to be reserved and, I guess, not put my input on things that I haven't had experience with, because I truly believe that, your credibility just goes down if you're talking about things that you haven't actually done. Hopefully I can learn off guys like you. You've done things that I haven't done, and you've done things that I haven't done, and I've done things maybe that you guys haven't done, and to be able to learn and bounce off each other, bounce ideas off one another, I think is the whole foundation of why we started this podcast in general.
100%.
But I think also to your point about speaking on things that we haven't done, I think that everyone gets that imposter syndrome. I think it's very common, right? Even for us to sit here right 100%. Now, and with all due respect to us, talk about business and success. Who the fuck are we? But
totally,
the point is that this is stuff that is people get so afraid to talk about because they think, who am I to talk about this?
But again, it goes back to insecurity. It goes back to insecurity. I'm afraid of what that person's going to say.
But also, everyone's so caught up on what has this person achieved, as opposed to why don't we all share our journeys and what we are doing, and maybe that will help people, or maybe people will just like to hear that. Oh, you know what? These guys, they don't necessarily think they're fucking Bill Gates or anything, but they're sharing their stories, and that gives me the confidence to go. You know what? I'm comfortable doing that, or maybe. I might try something new, or
100%.
Maybe I feel comfortable talking to people about it. Because there's a lot of people out there, at the end of the day, like you said, we're such an outcomes and results focused society, especially when it comes to a public forum or something like that. When in reality, the journey is something by far and away is the most important thing when it comes to
And you were just talking about Paulo Coelho. The whole premise of that book, The Alchemist, is
fucking unbelievable
to enjoy the journey rather than And what's that quote? I'm going to misquote it here, but the man that loves walking will enjoy the walk rather than
look it up.
Get it up
Look
there.
it up.
You know what I'm getting at there, but
I think also on the podcast, we're starting this from a place of we're not sure, we're just coming on, we're trying to give our experience and expertise in whatever we know, so we've got to be able to say the things that we know, because our audience, for those of you out there, they might catch something. For those of you out there, they might catch something that might really hit them home from our own experience. So I think when we look at, being an imposter or having that imposter syndrome, and that's something that I've had 100%, put my hand up to that. I think that if we can sort of break through that within this podcast and, even have the confidence to say, I've done that. This is what I have done. No, I still have stuff to learn.
Or I've tried that. Or I've fucking tried that.
It's the man who loves walking.
We'll test him.
Let's start again. The man who loves walking will walk farther than the man who loves the destination. I'm pretty sure
I found another one. And I will wait for a round of applause on this one too. If you only walk on sunny days, you'll never reach your destination. Let's go. That's great.
I don't know. That was a bit lame.
What do you mean? There's a quote from the same book. Did you read it and think it was lame?
What a dumb book. No. But I say that to my clients as well. I say we want to shine the light on the goals, but we want to take the light from the goal, because we know it now, and shine it at the next step, because the next step is the most important.
Yeah.
Right. So
the next step is the most important. I love that.
Totally.
And let's just
quote me.
I mean, even for us here, I remember when Shawnee came up and he first mentioned the podcast. So I'll do a podcast, and we're sitting at the cafe after the gym, 5 a.m.
Shout out to Elevate Specialty Cafe, one of the greatest. Elevate Specialty Coffee, one of the greatest cafes in Sydney. Elevate. We need some sponsors. Get some toasties going. Reuben Sandwich, one of the GOAT toasties.
And Shawnee's sitting there and he's saying we should do because we're just having good conversation. We're like, we should do a podcast. Shawnee's like, I want to do a podcast. And I remember, I think we were there and I'm like, podcast. And I'm like, nothing's going to happen. Sweet. I don't really mind, because I don't know if I'm comfortable or comfortable yet to do a podcast or even want to do one. And then Shawnee comes the next week and he's like, boys, I bought the deck.
Yeah.
I bought the deck,
We
which
bought
is
the-
like
bought
what
the
you're
gear.
looking at
And
right
here
here.
we are 3 months later.
And then he's like, go buy your headphones. And I always just say this, but you know, Shawnee, obviously very action oriented, if nothing else, the most action oriented person I know. And you know, that you saying like the next step is the most important one. I think that's one thing that like a lot of people get hung up on. It's even me. Like I think so much. Everyone thinks so much, but I think so much, and I always think about the big picture and the long-term goal so much that I think about what can get in the way as opposed to just taking that first step.
Just take the first fucking
Doubt,
step,
you know,
man. Alex
doubts
Hormozy
removed
talks
by
about it all the
action.
time. He said it takes 20 hours roughly to learn a skill, but people often put off the first hour for years and years and years. You just got to get stuck in, man.
But I also
like
think that people with skills that they're trying to learn, they expect themselves to know it straight away,
Yeah.
as opposed to failing, trying again, and then acquiring the skill over time.
Totally.
As opposed to just going, oh, I should know this skill now, and not sort of saying like, okay, well, if I don't get the skill straight away, that person's going to think of this way. That person's going to make, like, if we're at the gym, for example, you know, when we do our practice for muscle ups at the end of it, you know, there's a crowd of people, but we don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if I can't get it up. Like, I'm
But
going to
the
keep trying.
but the big-
then
yeah.
there'll be other people there that don't want that. They don't want to go and
Go and
practice
give it a
because
go.
they don't
Yeah,
want
you're
to.
right.
But it's not
They don't
just
wanna
the
But
fail.
what gets
They don't
that
wanna
person
see-
up there? What gets that person up there who doesn't want to? It's the cheer squad around
It's
them,
a
right?
cheer squad. It's environment.
And
yeah.
that's the beauty of the thing we have is that like a lot of the time when people are going and chasing these goals or whatever they want to do, they don't necessarily have. They might be sitting in their house on their own during the day, like trying to G themselves up. And I think that environment, having that like, you know, people call whatever you want. Some people call them the accountability coach. Some people say like having like the right team around you to like motivate you and
so they don't stop short. But it's also skill set, but it's not even just attaining the skill, it's even attaining success. If we can find that photo, we'll try and put it up
Which
right
photo?
here or here. There's a photo of two guys, one's on top, one's on the bottom, and they're like
Digging for gold?
They're digging.
Yeah.
They're digging.
I didn't know where you were going.
And that guy, he
Two
stops
guys, one
just
on top, one
short
on
and he's
bottom.
like, fuck it, I'll turn it around. And the other guy
Yeah,
just
yeah,
keeps on going
yeah.
and they're both at the
It's
same
that
point.
it's that consistency.
Totally.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That there's the 3 questions that you can ask yourself, right? Like, number 1, are you good at starting things? Number 2, are you good at maintaining things? Or number 3, are you good at finishing things? And you'll probably find that most people are good at starting things. Because when you look at a goal, let's say for example this podcast, we can visualize ourselves having 5,000 followers and, you know, having all this stuff and 1,000 episodes and being on Joe Rogan. We can visualize that, so we can get excited in the moment. But when we get down and sit down and do it, and then we do podcast 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have 1 subscriber, and then we go 6, 7, 8, we have 2 subscribers. Are we able to break through that and continue to go?
Totally.
Because you got to ask the question: is it that we need that longevity of consistency, or is it that our content's just shit?
Well, it's so
You know what I
easy
mean?
at the start to start.
I'm just using this as an example. I'm not saying that's going to
That's a
happen,
good point.
obviously, but
And that's the thing. There's so many variables, right? And like we talk about the fact that I don't know what were those stats. Like 70% of podcasts don't get past episode 3.
yeah.
90% don't get past episode
Yeah.
20 or 25%.
If you do 21 podcasts, you're in the top 1%
Top
of
1%.
podcasts.
Oh, there you go.
And
Coming
yeah,
for the
million-
top.
yeah.
We're coming for the
We're
top, baby.
We're coming.
Those 3 questions, Shawnee, I just want to pose them to the audience so we can probably wrap things up on the first episode. Those first 3 questions that you just alluded to. Are you good at starting things?
Yeah,
Second question.
Yeah, are you good at starting things? Are you good at maintaining things? Or are you good at finishing things?
Right.
Yeah. But let me take you through my dropout story as well before we wrap up.
Yeah,
too.
go on.
In terms of what happened
Please.
with me with uni, which was my whole uni journey was way shorter than both of yours by far. So obviously had that school experience where, you know, I just went there to play footy and, you know, play sports and eat my lunch. Coming out of that, my dad really wanted me to go to uni. I think my sister, she's 2 years older than me. She went to uni. I think she was the first one in our family, I think. And my father was a single parent from when we were 7 or 8 or when we were young. So I think for him, it was like, you know, he wants us to be able to go and do our best. And at that time, it was going to university. So I remember finishing school, and all I did was, because I was 18, went out with the boys and drunk and etc.
Standard.
So when it came to that next year, when it was obviously January, February, when it was time to go to uni, everyone was going. I hadn't signed up. I hadn't done anything. I was telling my dad, yeah, no worries. And then I obviously knew that I wasn't going to go. So me and my dad were driving in the car. I remember this specifically. I think we were going to the gym or something. And I was mustering up the courage to like tell him, yep, not going to uni. And my dad's like a very, very big guy, very strong guy. I respected him a lot, obviously, and I respected his opinion. So I mustered up the courage and I said to him, "Oh, Dad, look, I'm not going to uni." And he goes, "Yeah, I sort of figured." And he said, "Look, like, you're not going to uni. Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to work, yada, yada, yada." And he said, okay, well, you're going to have to pay rent at home. Okay, no worries. I didn't eventually I didn't end up paying rent. My dad just let me just work and whatnot. But then towards the end of that year that I worked, I decided, okay, I'm going to go to uni. Again, was it because I wanted to, or was it because my dad wanted me to? Maybe in between.
Mm-hmm.
But let's make it very clear, my dad never pushed me to do it.
Yeah.
He was just happy for me to go. If he'll be very happy. So then I went to uni. The next year, it was all exciting. My sister was already at Auckland University, and then my uni was in North Shore, so I had to go through there. So I used to go hang out with my sister in the first semester, made some new friends, all this sort of stuff. I was doing sport and rec diploma, I believe it was. And so we did the first semester, and then we had our holidays, and we had some assessments that were due. So through the holiday period, I can't remember how long it was, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, I didn't do anything. Again, I was 18, 19. I was going out, partying Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, like full on. And then it got to the morning of me having to go to class. So I was sitting at my desk at home, typing some things up, and it was like, okay, 8 o'clock, the bus is coming. So I was typing, 7:30, typing, got to 8 o'clock. Obviously, I'm going to miss the bus to go. Then I made the decision right there and then, I'm not going to uni anymore because I missed the bus.
That was the catalyst.
That was the catalyst.
That's a hectic story.
And then I didn't go back. So
What was the degree,
Why'd
sorry?
you drop out of
there was
uni?
a
Missed the
diploma
bus.
in sport and rec, or bachelor in sport and recreation.
Yeah.
And then you can go on to physiotherapy, or you can
You got to
go
make
on
the
to,
bus
PE.
first, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So that sort of shows you just that my mindset with regards to learning and growth. And again, in that period between then and I moved to Australia the year after, in 2008. Moved to Australia, and then that was just obviously a big time of me just partying and being young and not having responsibilities and being an irresponsible person, like actually quite immature.
2008, just starting. Damn, how old are you, Shawnee? Just for the record here, let's go through it. Shawnee?
So I'm 35, 36 in
Fuck,
October.
he looks good for 36, man. Jesus.
Man, looks
JP?
good. 30.
30?
Big 3-0.
23 here, so youngest.
So we've
When
got
are you
a
24? When are you 24?
June 10.
Oh, June 10
oh
soon.
middle
Queen's
of
birthday
winter.
long weekend, that's it.
So we've got
Getting
quite
old
a good.
now, huh?
Getting old. Didn't want to put it on you, Shawnee. Just thought we'd be
No, yeah,
transparent
100%.
here.
Yeah, 100%. So so that was
it- you put it on him.
that was it. Yeah, you dog.
Fuck, he looks good though.
So that was a dropout story.
Single?
Yeah. Yes.
Single. Oh, there's a bit of a break in the voice there, eh, Shawnee?
Yeah, single.
Single, JP?
Married.
Single.
Married, no kids.
Yeah.
Single as well, guys.
Single. All right.
At me. Nah, jokes.
Yeah. and that's really how we came up with the dropout story. So this is what we talked about in our practice.
Yeah, that's right.
So Maddie went, then JP was like, oh yeah, me too. And then I went and hey.
Wow, changed the name
gee,
on the spot.
let's go.
That was pretty good.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us on the first installment of the Dropouts podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for bearing with us. And if you made it to the end, be sure to jump on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the socials. We're there live. We'll be recording once a week at this stage. So tune into the next episode. We appreciate and love you guys all. Shawnee, anything?
100%. Thanks, Fam Bam. Episode number 1. We are going for 100, 200, 500 episodes. So we're going to be here for the long haul.
To the moon.
Longevity, right? That's what we're looking for. So yeah, looking forward to the next one. Love it with the boys. And
If you have any questions, make sure you send them in the DM.
Again, questions, feedback, anything. Yeah, questions would be great. It'd be great to have some topics to talk about that the people want to hear, all three of you.
Yeah.
And in the next couple of weeks, we're definitely looking at probably getting some hosts as we move through some episodes. Some guests, sorry.
Yeah, some guests, yeah.
So shoot us some recommendations. Love you guys.
Thanks, gang.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Dropouts, baby.